Hello and welcome to Context, episode 3. Today's episode is, if you're just joining in and you're listening into this podcast for the very first time, I'm going to highly suggest you listen to episode 1. I kind of just think aloud and share some of the context of why this podcast is starting, who I am, and what I'll be talking about. And so today's episode 2, I'm going to fill in all the little gaps of every single tangent, not every tangent, but most, okay. I'm going to fill in the gaps of some of the tangents that I started going on in episode 1 that I never really finished talking about, such as, talking about like my breast reduction journey and choosing a size and dealing with, body image issues and stuff like that, along with direct synchronicities in my life and Kabbalah and the class that I took last semester. I talked a little bit about this at the very end of the episode 1. And if there's more time, I'll talk a little bit about the moon. And I'm going to talk about what spirit means to me, divine. I used a lot of the words like that in episode 1, talking about, when spirit says this or divine says this. So I'm going to be talking about that today. So let's jump right into it. So I shared about how choosing the size of whatever bra cup size for my breast reduction, I talked I started talking about how everyone always asked me, what size are you going to? And when I talked with my surgeon, it was very clear that I was not choosing the actual size that I was going down to until the day of surgery, right before the operating room, right after talking with the anesthesiologist. The surgeon came in and he was like, okay, what did you decide on? And in the last episode, I was talking about if I would go back to my 19-year-old self and I would talk to them, I would tell them, go with your gut. And I think I was really debating for a few months about sticking to like a B, C cup, let me also preface, prior to surgery, the reason why I was getting this breast reduction was because of the chronic back and neck pain. And every time I looked in a mirror, I hated what I saw. And maybe it was, let's do a little content trigger warning right here. I'll also have it in the description, but, brief discussion about like gender and body dysmorphia, dysphoria, and being uncomfortable in my body and not liking myself. But every time I would look in the mirror, I always thought I was bigger than I was. Not that there's any problem with being a bigger person. Like physically, like if you're fat, like fat is not a bad word. There's a lot of fat phobia in society. I'm not going to really get into that right now, but like growing up, I was made fun of for being fat as a kid, and I would always look in the mirror and I always would see somebody who wasn't there. I feel like whenever I looked at myself, I wasn't actually seeing my body. And I had a really not great relationship to food in order to try to fit into societal standards of like this like westernized white skinny beauty standard of like, the it's rooted in pedophilia and in the patriarchy, all of this. Oh my gosh, is it snowing outside? I'm looking outside my window and getting a little distracted. I am the difference between me recording this podcast versus episode 1 is I am on my ADHD medication, Adderall, and guanfacine, which I'm hoping I don't honestly have no idea if you can tell the difference in the way that I'm talking or the way that my thought patterns work. All I know is that I have not more energy, but it's easier for me to get things done. Like the executive function of getting my work done is a lot easier when I'm on my medication. So that's why I take it. But I think it might be snowing right now, like little flurries, which is amazing. Oh, it is. That's cute. Oh, I really like the snow. I didn't grow up around snow. And now I'm going on another tangent about the little snow and the flurries. But anyway, so I was really trying not to be influenced by anyone's opinion but myself. But there were people in my family telling me, you don't want to go down too small. You still want to fill a bra. You still want to da 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 da, all this. And I told my surgeon, I was like, I want a B cup, but like a full B cup, maybe a C in some brands. And I don't regret this. Like, I'm a person who I don't have regrets in life. Like, in this lifetime, I've done what I've done, and I trust that I did what I did in order to get to exactly where I need to be, what I needed to experience to learn the lessons, to grow as a person. I don't really have regrets in this lifetime. But I wonder sometimes if I would still feel gender dysphoria as much as I do on a day-to-day basis right now in the here and the now about my chest, if I would have gone down to an A cup versus a B cup. And I don't know that, and it doesn't really matter. I am where I am right now. Some days I bind my chest with tape or with a binder, and some days I don't. Some days I have really bad chest dysphoria. Some days I don't. I'm a very fluid person in my expression in life, and I think the only reason I experience dysphoria with my chest is because of society and the objectification and sexualization of breasts. And that is something that really, really, I was so looking forward to getting this reduction because of how sexualized I was. Growing up, I started growing boobs maybe when I was like, I don't know, I want to say like 11, 12. I got my first period when I was 12 years old. It was like, maybe I was like 12 and a half. I was like making my way through. I don't remember the day. I don't know, maybe I have it written down somewhere. I think it was like, I don't know, I was born in February, and I think I remember I got my first period. It was probably in the fall of that year, because I remember I had gone to the local high school's football game with my dad to go support, some of people he would train and work out with, and his friends, like children were there. I don't know. It was a thing to go, to the Friday night football game at the local high school, regardless if you were a part of the high school or not. And I remember this because my mom wasn't there. And I got home and I went to the bathroom and I looked at my underwear and I was like, what is that? Is that my period? It was like a little bit of brown. Just like, I didn't feel it. I didn't know it was happening. I didn't have any cramps or anything yet. I can get into that. I can talk about periods and dysphoria around that. Honestly, maybe now, but I want to finish the story about talking about the breast reduction and my journey with that and why that connects to this podcast. So anyway, reeling it back to the breast reduction surgery itself, I ended up with a, I don't know, BC cup. I don't wear bras. Like, I have not ever since so if you don't know, for breast reduction, you have to wear a surgical bra for quite some time. I think it was 3 to 4 months that you wear this surgical bra post-op in order to make sure, it was like at least for 1 or 2 months that you wear it, and then you wear like sports bras or tight bras for like 3 to 4 months. I don't know. I need to double check the information, but I think this is for my case. Everyone's different. If you're interested in getting a breast reduction, definitely talk to your surgeon, your doctor. Like, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a licensed professional. Like, take this with a grain of salt. But, I was wearing this bra, surgical bra, and I remember how happy I was after the surgery. Like, I was like, it's done. I never have to have these huge melons on my chest. Like, I think I was, I want to say like 34G. I don't know. I don't remember. Honestly, I didn't know my bra size until my consultation for this breast reduction. I was wearing like triple D, double D bras that weren't fitting me right. Like, I was spilling out of them. I had pain. They were always digging into me. It was really hard to exercise. I had like these really huge sports bras that I would always wear, and like it was really hard to find proper bras that fit me growing up. But yeah, I got my period when I was 12-ish, 12 and a half or something. I don't know. And my boobs were growing. And I remember getting my first bra. I was really, really like nervous and excited about it. Like when I was little, I didn't know I was trans when I was little. Like maybe I did when I was really little, but I remember in middle school, I was very much like excited to be in middle school and to go through puberty. I wasn't like excited to go through puberty, but I knew it was going to happen. I had that little like American Girl doll puberty book. If you know, you know. And I didn't know much about a period. I really thought it was like a little period, like a dot of blood every month. Like that's what I thought a period was. I wasn't super educated about it before I got mine. And then once I got mine, I like started to understand a lot more. And my body started developing at a rapid pace in middle school. And by the end of middle school, I think I had already a D, if not double D cup size. And so I remember in 8th grade, there was a shirt that I really loved that I wore all throughout middle school. It was like this blue top, and it had some like cross stitching near the collar. It was like really trendy at the time, and it had like a high to low waist line, like the hem at the waist, at the bottom of the shirt. It like was at the hip, and then the back of the shirt like covered like the top of the butt. I don't know. Like I don't know how to describe it. Like a little train, not really train, but like it had like a little high to low moment. I loved the shirt. And I remember I got dress coded. I was like, got a warning to get dress coded. And if you don't know what this means, in the middle school that I went to and, the elementary and high school, we have these dress codes that in the student handbook, I went to public school. In the student handbook, there's like what you are allowed to wear and what you're not allowed to wear. And when it came to being a girl, there was a lot of things you were not allowed to wear, like spaghetti strap or shirtless, or not shirtless, of course not shirtless, sleeveless. So no sleevelessness, like you couldn't show your midriff. You had to have shorts that went down to your like knuckles if you had your hands down, and skirts that went down to your fingers if you put like your hand straight down to your sides, like your skirt had to pass it or your shorts had to pass your knuckles or something like that. And I remember I was short. I am short. I'm a really short person. I was like 4 foot something in middle school. Like I really only grew past 5 feet in high school. Like I was really, really short compared to some other kids. And the only thing that was really changing and growing were my boobs. Not my height, but my breasts were growing, my boobs. And I didn't even notice because I had been wearing this shirt for a few years now, and I didn't think anything of it. I was just walking around, and because my chest had grown, the hem of the bottom of the shirt didn't lie at my waist. It like kind of showed my midriff just a little bit, like barely, because the shirt was getting a little small on me. My boobs were filling it up. So it was kind of raised. And I remember the yard duty is what we would call them. Like the people who were out in recess or lunch, like they would just like make sure people are safe and being okay and following the rules. Came up to me and was like, I don't even remember really the voice or what exactly was said to me, but it was something along the lines of like, you can't wear this anymore. Like, don't let me see you wearing this shirt again, or else I'm going to need to send you to get dress coded, and like, I can see your midriff. That's not okay. Consider this a warning. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't, like, it's not a crop top. Like, I don't have many very shirts I feel comfortable in. Like, I felt good about this shirt. I felt really good. Like, and I was realizing, like, oh my God, like, my boobs are growing. And like, I remember if ever I wanted, it was so hard for me to find clothing I felt comfortable in that, if I had like a low, collar, I had cleavage. And if I didn't have a low collar, I felt like it was choking myself. I'm not going to get into this, but like when I was little, I had a relatively near death experience with somebody like choking me in a headlock underwater. Maybe I'll talk about that another time. But anything touching my neck, like even like necklaces sometimes, like I'm wearing a necklace right now if you're watching like the video, but sometimes I have to take it off. Like it gets overstimulating or it like gets a little triggering. So I don't like when things really like touch my neck. So any t-shirt collars that were really tight, I didn't really like wearing them. I wasn't really comfortable. So as I got older, yeah, I had hand-me-downs from my older sibling. But like buying clothes was really difficult for me. I hated going shopping and looking at myself in the mall. It was never a good time. I always wanted to wear things that I never felt I could because I knew I would be sexualized. And I knew like the clothes that I wanted to wear were meant for people with smaller chests. And it was just like whatever was trendy at the time, I was never able to. I mean, I was probably able to wear it if I really wanted, but they never made them in the size that would fit me. It wouldn't look right, or it would be a crop top, and I wasn't into wearing crop tops. I wasn't really confident about my stomach, and I have to be distracted by the snow that is outside my window right now, y'all. Oh my gosh, it's so pretty. I grew up in Southern California, so every time I see snow start to fall for the first time, like if it hadn't already been snowing earlier in the day, like it's so beautiful and so magical. Wow. I have a lot of gratitude for the snow. It's really pretty. That being said, leading up to this breast reduction, I had wanted one ever since I started like growing boobs. I'm like, I didn't even know if it was possible. I was really nervous. To ask my parents about it. And I talked with my mom. And I was like, Ima, I call my mom Ima. I was like, Ima, I want a breast reduction. And I was 19. This was in the height of the pandemic. And when I say height of the pandemic, I don't mean the actual height of the pandemic. I mean, this was like a couple months into the pandemic, like maybe April of 2020. And I was like, I've really been thinking about it. It's something that I want to do. And I'm a musical theater major, right? I've had 1 year of school as in my undergraduate. And this is a really physically intense major. Like this is really physically intense. And I'm just remembering now, it was really hard for me to like muck up the courage to ask my mom. And she was like, oh, I had a breast reduction. I was like, no freaking way. I had no idea. Like, I really had no idea my mom had a breast reduction. And she was like, are you sure you don't want to wait till you have kids? And I told her, I was like, Ima, I've told you this before. I don't want to have kids. I don't want to have my own kids. And this is something I've told my mom. And she was like, please don't tell me that. You don't know yet. But I knew ever since I had my period when I was 12, I was like, get this out of me. Get my uterus out. Get my ovaries out. I don't want this. Now I can tell you I don't have a uterus anymore. I just got a hysterectomy last month. It's been 1 month and a couple days. So that's really exciting. And I can talk about that another time too. And I am realizing I'm checking the time and I only have a few more minutes to finish this section of this episode. So if you're watching, I'm going to be probably in a different outfit, looking a little bit different for the second part of this episode, but I am going to finish what I wanted to say about why I started this podcast in the next 10 minutes or so. So I'm just being aware, just checking the time, because I only had a little bit of time. But I'm trying to get this podcast out for all of you, so I'm really really excited, and I'm going to try to film it in some snippets if I can't just sit for an hour and chat like I did with the first episode. So getting this breast reduction, once my mom was like, if you're sure this is something you want, I was like, Ima, I know the risk about breastfeeding. Say I do change my mind in 10, 20 years and I want to have a kid. There's a lot of women out there who are not able to breastfeed regardless of having any procedures done. You know, the chance is just as much, like I have just as much chance of being infertile. Like, I don't know. It's not something I want to prevent. I want to get this breast reduction now so that I have the time to heal and train in my body without needing to take a month or two once I'm in the professional world, you know? Musical theater, it's like once you're out there, and you can get an audition or a callback at a moment's notice. And I was really wanting to be proactive. Like, if I get this breast reduction now, this year, next year, I can heal by the time I need to do summer stock auditions and whatever. Not knowing that the pandemic is still going now, 2 years later, 3 years later. Wow. 3 years later, we are still in a pandemic. Hooray. That is sarcastic, if you could not pick up on that. But anyway, as soon as I had gone to get the consultation, I decided I had watched every single video on YouTube at this point of 19, 20, 21, 22, like anyone who had gotten a breast reduction and was young, I was watching their videos and I wanted more. And I decided I'm going to vlog and take pictures of my healing process and my journey so that I can share it with any other people who want to get a breast reduction, who are 19 years old and want to know what that journey is like and if I regret it and whatever. And my idea is that I bought this microphone December 2020. I got the reduction in November 2020. I was like, I'm going to, vlog for the first 6 months, maybe the first year, and I'll start uploading a really long video talking about my experience. And then as the years progress, I'll do update videos. And I thought, you know what, I could do a podcast talking about it. That's a good idea. Like, not only am I going to vlog my experience, but I want to talk about this. And then I want to talk about my body dysmorphia and the sexualization and objectification of bodies in society today. I had written many, many essays about body positivity and, the negative effects of the media that has on our mental health when it comes to body image, specifically in the United States, but also, around the world. But this was something I am and I was really, really passionate about. And so this was the idea of the podcast, is that I would talk about the breast reduction journey and then continue the podcast just talking about these issues that I was really passionate about in order to spread body positivity and awareness that you should love, and it's okay to love your body no matter what it looks like. You don't need to go on some diet. You don't need to track your calories. As long as you are fueling your body with nutrients and love and you feel healthy, and I don't know, some doctors, they'll tell you you're not healthy even if you are healthy. So if you are in a good place, taking care of your body, exercising, not like crazy, not like I remember I was exercising in a really unhealthy way for a long time in order to get my body to look a certain way. Now, if I'm exercising, it's to move my body, to feel good. Like, I'm not trying to look a certain way anymore. That being said, I am trying to look a certain way when I, bind my chest or when I put a packer in my pants. Like, I can talk about this another time too, but, that was it. This was what I wanted the podcast to be. And as I started figuring out that I was trans, I remember I have a video of me on my phone somewhere using they, them pronouns for myself. And I just was crying. And I'm like, that felt so good. And I don't know if I'll ever show that video or whatever, but it was like after the breast reduction. And I just remember being like, oh my God, I want they, them pronouns to use for me. And I don't remember if it was before or after the breast reduction, but after the breast reduction, I was finally able to start wearing clothes that I had wanted to be, that didn't fit me with my boobs. Like, I was able to find new clothes and style myself, and whether or not it was like an androgynous look or not, like, it was really, really awesome. I was able to explore. And it came the day, it was like 3 or 4 months out, that I was able to not wear that surgical bra anymore, the sports bras. And I remember I took off the bra and I looked at myself and I felt unhappy. And I had realized it's not that I wanted less boob, it's that I want no boob. And that was really a turning moment in my journey where I was like, holy shit, I'm trans. And I kind of sat in my bed just to myself. I didn't tell anyone. I just kind of sat with myself and I was like, fuck. Like, what does this mean? Like, what am I going to do? And then I kind of put that in a box and didn't really process it for another few months, if not the next year. And in 2021, I really started coming into myself and getting really, really into my spirituality. In 2020, I started picking up my spirituality, and this is what I'm going to talk about this in the second half of the episode. I am going to stop recording right now. So if the microphone sounds a little bit different in the second half, I ask you to grant me grace, but I do need to stop recording. So thank you for listening to this first part, and we'll get into part 2 literally in a few seconds. But yeah, thank you for listening, and I will talk about the synchronicities with magic and Kabbalah and my spirituality and how it links to Judaism and my religious practice now. So I'll talk about that right now. Okay, so if you are watching the podcast and not just listening to it, you will see that I am wearing a different shirt. It is nighttime. It is a different day, and my hair is wet. I just got out of the shower, and I have some time tonight to finish this second episode. So also, I checked my microphone levels. I'm hoping it sounds relatively the same, but I do want to just add this little disclaimer that if this second half of the podcast sounds a little bit different than the first half, I'm asking that you give me some grace, as I'm giving myself grace in snipping together the first and second part of this. But I wanted to talk about how my journey with figuring out my authentic self and my transness, how it directly correlates with my spiritual awakening, and when I really started practicing a spiritual practice and the direct synchronicities between that and Kabbalah and Judaism. So that's what we're talking about right now. And I'm trying to figure out where I want to begin, because I feel like I talked a little bit about this, just a touch of it, but this book, Kabbalah for the Modern World, I read it for the first time, I want to say, over the summer of 2021. At some point over the summer previous to the fall of 2021. And in 2020, I started meditating daily. And it wasn't anything crazy. It was literally, I used the app Insight Timer, which I now am a teacher and a healer on. But I started using this app because I used to use meditations to sleep. I had really, really bad insomnia through middle and high school. Sometimes I will still have nights where, it's hard for me to fall asleep, or once I'm asleep and I wake up, it's hard for me to fall back asleep from there. But it used to be really bad. And so in order to fall asleep, I would need to use a sleep meditation. And I had this whole playlist on YouTube of different meditations I would use to sleep. But, there are ads that play on YouTube, and I didn't like that the ads may be playing when I was asleep. I didn't really, I would use affirmations and stuff that would go into your subconscious. I don't know why I said that like that. Your subconscious mind. And, I used to use the Headspace app, but, after a 7-day free trial, they want to charge you to use it. And I, as a teenager, I'm I don't have money for this. I don't have a job. I'm a full-time high school student, and I'm not going to ask my parents to pay for this. I'm not in therapy right now. So, you know what I mean? If they're not no offense to my parents, but if they weren't already putting me in therapy, like, why would they pay for a meditation app? They probably would have. I probably could have just asked, but anywho. Fast forward to 2020, I found this app from TikTok. I downloaded TikTok in 2020 after the pandemic had begun in March, maybe in April. And I used to, before I got TikTok, I was one of those people that was like, I'm too mature for TikTok. Like, I don't ever want to be on TikTok. Boo, whatever. And then I downloaded it because I was bored out of my freaking mind and everyone had been talking about sending me TikToks, whatever. I'm like, fine, let me see what this is about. And the first week or so, I was like, okay, I get the appeal. Sure. And then the algorithm, after a week, so specific, showing me exactly content that I would want to see. And it just kept getting even more specific and scarily, like, oh my gosh. But basically TikTok is how I found Insight Timer. Like, there was somebody who was like, do you want to meditate for free? And da 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 da. And I don't think it was an Insight Timer TikTok. I think it was just somebody who taught on Insight Timer, or somebody who found Insight Timer and wanted to share it. It wasn't like an ad or sponsored. It was just like something. And I was like, I'll look into this. And then I started using it every day. And on Insight Timer, there's a really cute function that, you like can have a streak, like every day that you meditate, like it builds up the consecutive days. And I think I had reached over 200 days in a row from like the first day that I had used it, because I loved it. And there were just so many different options. And so I was doing like 5 to 15 minute maximum, just a morning meditation every day for quite some time. And I started watching more lives, and on TikTok, I started seeing all these TikToks about spiritual awakening and messages and stuff. And it really resonated with me. Like, I would get goosebumps from some videos. Like, I was like, damn, like, don't believe everything you see. And also, like, do your research if you see a TikTok. The internet is the internet. You have unlimited resources, but don't just take a word of some random 30-second video on your algorithm. You know what I mean? So I started seeing more and more about, what spirituality is, and, connecting to your divine essence, and you are not a human, but you are a soul experiencing a human life. So like, that's like your ego is human. I don't know, like all of this stuff. The separation between your higher self and the inner child. And I started doing, inner child meditations, past life regression meditations. I started hearing about these spirit guides. I'm like, what is a spirit guide? I really wanted to meet my spirit guides. I was like, I want to meditate. I want to meet my spirit guides. I want to learn their names. And in like October of 2020, I was able to like get the names. And I talked about this a little bit on Insight Timer. So I have my journals, and maybe I'll do a segment here on this podcast reading from my past journals. I have my journals saved. And these are journals that are, some manifesting journals, some this is me at a later date. I don't know why the audio recorded a little bit funky, but in a minute you're going to hear there's like some crickling in the audio. So I just want to say I know and I'm aware that this happens in the audio, and I don't know how to change it, and I am not going to re-record it this episode if it happens again. I just want to let you know that you're going to hear some crickling in the audio. Some manifesting journal, some channeled messages and downloads, some gratitude journaling, and just a lot of different things. So maybe I will share some of that in the future. And I really got into this spiritual practice. I bought myself a tarot deck, and I started doing like readings for myself, connecting to my spirit guides, even though I wasn't, when I say connecting to my spirit guides, this is a whole from episode 1 that I said I would talk about and that I never did, is when I say spirit. When I'm talking about spirit, I am meaning divine. I'm meaning beings that don't exist on the earth plane. I'm talking about, some people use spirit, some people say God, some people say Jesus, some people say divine, some people say the universe, the world, essence. Like, oh, the universe sent me a sign. I could say spirit sent me a sign. It's the same thing to me. I believe in the universe. I believe that we are all one and we are of the same essence, and that every single person is God, and that God is the world, is the ceiling that's holding the outside away from your room. God is the trees outside your window, or the grass that you walk on. God is everything. We are God. You are God. I am God. Like, that's kind of what I believe. I don't necessarily believe in like a God, but I also do, because I believe like the universe is God, and like I believe in the universe. So I don't know. I'm a little tired right now. Again, this is like, I'm recording this right now, usually when I'm asleep in bed, but I got this spurt of energy, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna record the rest of this episode tonight. So you're getting a half tired, half burst of energy after 11 p.m. Well, it's 11 p.m. like on the dot right now, but anyway. So my brain is kind of scattered, but that's the whole point of this podcast. I'm trying not to judge myself, I guess is what's happening as I am speaking aloud. But when I say spirit, that's basically what I mean. I hope that makes sense. Like, spirit is divine love. Like, light and love is spirit, is divine, is God, is the universe, whatever you want to call it. If you don't believe in it, you don't need to believe in it. I'm not asking you to. I'm just sharing my experience in my life. So a spirit guide, if you're not familiar with the term, a lot of people believe, including me, that we have guides on the other side. And when I say the other side, I mean in the form of spirit. Like, not a ghost per se, but like a spirit, like a being, an essence that is not human. Who these spirit guides, they are with us from the moment we are born until we die, and they protect us. They communicate with us throughout our entire lives, whether or not we are consciously aware of the communication. Like, you ever get like a really weird coincidence where you're like thinking about somebody, and then you like get a text from them, or you see them, or you run into them, and they like tell you something, and you start talking about something with them, and you're like, oh my God, was just talking about this with somebody else. That's a synchronicity. That's what I like to refer to as a synchronicity. Like, say that you have a song stuck in your head, and then you turn on the radio and that song is playing, or you're seeing numbers that are repeating all the time. Like, you're seeing 1111 every day in a row. That's a synchronicity in my book. And sometimes I like to believe that spirit guides or past loved ones, ancestors, whatever you believe or don't believe in, will send us these. And I don't know how they send them. I'm here alive on this earth, so I don't know how it works, but I'll probably figure that out once I'm in the beyond. But I'm right here right now, and I don't plan on going in the beyond anytime soon. So, but that's not up to me. Anyway, maybe you'll see a specific animal outside, or a rare animal that, like, for me, it's like I will see like bunny rabbits in the winter, or like a cardinal, or a ladybug, or a hawk. And these are specific signs, like a blue jay. Blue jay was a big sign from spirit for me for a long time, and still is. And I haven't seen one in a while. I hear them all the fucking time. I hear blue jays all the time. I live right now, there is a park nearby that has a few blue jay nests, and so they're right by my window sometimes in the morning, and they'll wake me up sometimes. But anyway, the reason why I'm talking about this is because synchronicities is something that the like author's note in the beginning of this book that I had read. And I don't have the book with me right now. I lent it to a friend actually, so I don't have I don't have the specific quotes or anything, but this book directly talks about the synchronicities between just like how synchronicities are linked with Kabbalah and Kabbalistic magic and Judaism. And when I was reading it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is all the spiritual synchronicities that I have been doing, all the spiritual things that I have been experiencing for the last year and a half or so. When I was first reading this book, I was like, not only does this resonate with me in a spiritual way, but this is Kabbalah, like Kabbalah. Like, I was raised and am Jewish. This is a big part of my identity. And I never grew up religious. Let me actually give y'all some context to how I was brought up. I talked about, I think, a little bit that my mom is from Israel, and I have dual citizenship. I grew up over the summer, pretty much every summer of my childhood until I want to say 17. I was in Israel for a month minimum every summer growing up in the kibbutz that my mom grew up in, visiting my friends, traveling all around. I wasn't in one place. I was sightseeing. I was traveling around with my mom and my siblings, and we grew up, we spoke Hebrew and English at home, and we didn't keep kosher. That wasn't necessarily like, when my mom raised my siblings and I with her Israeli Jewish experience, a lot of American Judaism is a lot different, so my dad grew up in America, in the United States, I should say. And not should say, but I want to not say America. I rather say the United States, because they're different things. And in the United States, it's normalized to call it America when America is more than just the United States. That's a side note. That's a different conversation for another time. But anyway, my dad grew up as an American Jew in the United States, and my mom grew up as an Israeli Jew in Israel. And so when they got married and when they decided to raise kids, I feel like my mom kind of took the reins on most of the things, and we would go to the temple, synagogue, shul, whatever you want to call it, for high holidays like Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and Pesach, Passover. Rosh Hashanah is the Jewish New Year. Yom Kippur is the Day of Atonement. Oh my God, not attunement, atonement. Which is one of the holiest days celebrated, or not celebrated. It's not celebrated. It's like observed. One of the holiest days observed in Judaism is Yom Kippur. And I'm not going to talk about that holiday right now, or that religious day, but we wouldn't observe these in a traditionally like Orthodox Jewish way. We were raised very much like, there's all these different like sections of Judaism. I don't know if you're listening, if you're familiar with that, or, some people who are listening, this may be your first experience ever seeing or listening to a Jewish person talk. So I'm trying to be specific with my wording, but honestly, I don't have the energy to explain it right now. Maybe another day I'll explain it more in depth. But we grew up in a very semi-observant way. Our observance was more so at home. On Friday nights, we would celebrate Shabbat, but it wasn't like you can't use electricity, you don't do work. It was just like we get together Friday night, we light candles, sometimes before the sunset, sometimes after the sunset. Why? it would depend on when we wanted to have dinner. And then we would have dinner together, and we had a white tablecloth, and sometimes we would have grape juice or wine, and most nights we would have challah bread, and sometimes we wouldn't. And what did that depend on? Whether or not we found it at the grocery store that week, whether or not my parents had the energy to go get it at the grocery store. What did we have for dinner? It changed all the time, but my mom would really try her best that we would have like a nice home cooked meal for Shabbat dinner. But sometimes we would order Chinese takeout, and that would be Shabbat because we lit the candles and we sat together as a family on Friday night. And Shabbat growing up really was that. It was just, having dinner as a family. And sometimes, if I or one of my siblings had an event or a show or a sleepover or wanted to hang out with a friend, we wouldn't celebrate Shabbat with the rest of the family. And it would just be, I grew up in my family. I have 2 siblings and my 2 parents. So I have a family of 5, including me. So it wouldn't be all 5 of us sometimes. It would be 4 or 3 of us, or maybe it would just be my parents at home and they would have Shabbat together. And it's like, there was no right way to do it. Like, there was no expectation. It was just like, please try to be home on Friday night, but life happens, and we live in a society that doesn't really take Shabbat into consideration. In Israel, in the Holy Land, as some might say, Shabbat is a big influence in public transportation, in many stores. They're closed. Like, a lot of people observe Shabbat more traditionally in an Orthodox way of no electricity, no driving, no work, no there's like a whole list of different things that people do, and everybody does it differently. But when I grew up, we never really like observed religiously. It was kind of loose. We celebrated Hanukkah at home, but I don't really want to get into this tangent right now about how I celebrated Judaism growing up, but I can probably talk about this in another episode if I really want to get into it. But right now, me today, I am more religious, I would say, but also like not really, okay. As I was reading this book, all of my spiritual practice that I had already created for myself intuitively, from an intuitive standpoint, I had done no like specific reading on spiritual stuff. Like, I had done some reading about, changing the subconscious mind and, creating better habits in your life and how you can do that through meditation and affirmations. And I was meditating and I was meeting my spirit guides and I was, getting into like Reiki and stuff. I was pretty interested in that. And I had either just gotten my Reiki 1 certification or I was just about to when I was reading, when I like had read this book. I think I had already had it, my Reiki 1 certification. As I was reading this book, I realized all of the stuff I do intuitively is in alignment with Kabbalistic practice. And that was a really beautiful, mind-blowing thing that I was like, holy cannoli, holy poo. I am already practicing Judaism on my own. And I was not connected to Judaism until after I had already created this spiritual practice for myself and realized that this was an ancient practice for Judaism. And now, here in the now, I celebrate Shabbat in the sense that with the sun down, or now in the winter, because I'm in Boston right now, and the sun sets at like, well, now it's like after 4:30, but like it used to set at like, 3:30 p.m. That's too early for me to stop doing things, at least right now while I'm still a student and have class until 3:45 p.m. You know what I mean? So it's like I'm observing Shabbat typically around 5 or 5:30 p.m. until 6:30 p.m. Saturday. So Friday night, once 5 or 5:30 hits, I don't go on social media anymore. I've been, and this is a practice that took some time. I started off celebrating Shabbat in my own way last year, just I'm not going to do any schoolwork. I'm still going to, go hang out with friends. I can go see shows. I'm going on public transportation. I'm just not going to do schoolwork on Shabbat. If I can, the whole weekend. But on Saturdays, I'm not doing any schoolwork. And that was a boundary I had set with myself. And that was something I implemented with my teachers. And this last semester in the fall, I was assistant directing a production of a play on campus. And I told the director, I was assistant directing along with a couple other people. I told the director at the beginning of the practice, or at the beginning of the rehearsal process, that I started to practice my religious observance of Shabbat. And I didn't know if I was going to do that for the tech week or if for the performances themselves. I didn't know, but for the rehearsal process, it was a quick 4-week rehearsal process. I wasn't going to go to rehearsals on Friday nights or Saturday days. And we had rehearsals every week, Friday night and Saturday, all day. And I didn't go to them. And I didn't do work. And I realized how much peace it brought me and how awesome it was to be accommodated in the rehearsal space. And it came to the week of tech week. And, if you're a theater person, if you're aware of what that was, we had done a designer run and then getting into not a 10 out of 12. I think it was an 8 out of 10 day. And then that whole next week was tech week. And I was really at a battle between do I go to give my 2 cents, to give my notes for these actors on the last few days that we are giving them notes before, the show is theirs. Once we're in tech week, it's really, the show is not about it's not the directing, the creative team's turn to continue giving notes to the actors. It's pretty much the show is theirs. They get to do what they get to do with it. We gave them notes and stuff, but it wasn't we had created what we had done, and we kind of hand it over to, the production, with the costumes, with the sets, with the lights, with the sound, with the stage management, kind of calling all the cues and everything. And really the notes should be for the cues and making sure everything is running smoothly. And so I really didn't want to miss that. But I talked with the director, and she was like, you know what? It's up to you. When you're in the room, your voice will be heard. When you're not in the room, your voice will be missed. And that really stuck with me. And I ended up accommodating myself and not attending these Friday night and Saturday tech rehearsals. And that was a really big turning point for me, that I was like, I think I want to observe Shabbat more seriously. And I started incorporating, I'm not going to go on public transportation or pay for services on Shabbat. Once the sun is down, that's it. If I want to go buy something, I'm going to have to wait until the next night or until Sunday morning. And then after doing that for a couple weeks, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to go on Instagram. I'm not going to go on Facebook. After doing that for a couple weeks, I'm not going to go on TikTok. And now I have phased out Snapchat too, all these social medias. And so I've been phasing out social media for the last couple months. And now when I'm observing Shabbat, it's 5:30 or 5 o'clock hits, depending on the week, depending on what work I have to get done before. And I am just existing. And I still make food. I still use the internet. I still call and text my friends and bake for myself or cook for myself and heat things up, and I'll paint or I'll journal or write, or I'll do some stuff for myself that it could be considered work for somebody else, but for me it's not work. And I will walk places, I will meet friends, but I'm not using public transportation or paying for services or goods. But if somebody is to drive me, that's okay. It's lenient, but it's to create this peace within my life. And so now my spirituality And like, I feel like I practice Judaism in a more spiritual way than I do religiously. And more recently, I've started being more religious in the sense of observing Shabbat every week. But like, I'm not religious in the sense that like I celebrate all the holidays very intensely, but like I do. Like, I don't go to class if it lands on Passover or Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, but I grew up that way. My mom, she told me, while we're still living together, as you're a kid, I want you to grow up not going to class. We shouldn't have class on these days anyway. If you were in Israel, you wouldn't have class. So it's an excused absence. So once you're on in your own world, like once you leave, you get to choose what you want to do. But for now, I want you to observe. And that's pretty much was it. But if there was like a test or an audition or something, I remember once I had an audition for this, like, it was like a state choir, advanced choir situation on Yom Kippur, and I fasted and I just drank water, and I did the audition, and my mom told me she thinks it was karma because I didn't get into this choir. She was like, I think it's because you auditioned on Yom Kippur and that you didn't get in. And I just found this out like literally last month, she told me, which I think is hilarious. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. I think it was for the best that I didn't get into this state choir, but anyway, nonetheless. But I also like to meditate on Shabbat. Like, I think inevitably I would love to get to a point where I'm not using electronics and I'm not on my phone. But because of my life and how I've lived for the past almost 22 years of my life, surrounded by these things, it's really hard to just take it away, even if it's just for 24, 25 hours. So I'm slowly navigating, and I know that my practice may shift and I may not observe in the future, but right now, this is what I'm doing and what is feeling most aligned with me and my life. So I started to do that, and I'm really grateful that I've been able to accommodate myself in this way and to live in this way. It can be scary sometimes to like tell people that I observe Shabbat, or like to ask for accommodations around it, especially when it comes to like auditioning and shows. Like right now I've been going to callbacks this entire week for student shows and other like shows at my college. And, I put in my conflicts, like I'm not going to be able to rehearse or perform on Saturdays or Friday nights. And that's a really scary thing to do, because most people, they see that and they say, I'm just not going to cast you. But I'm trusting right now. I'm putting it out into the universe that what is meant for me to do is meant for me to do. And if not what I'm auditioning for right now, something more divine, more beautiful, more in alignment is coming my way. So I'm really excited to see if I'm cast in anything this semester. And maybe I'll talk about it once I know, but I'm leaving that up for the universe to decide. But I want to say, a lot of my spiritual practice within 2020, within 2021, 2022, and now in 2023 is aligning with my authentic self. And what does that mean? And what does that look like? And a lot of that was learning how to unmask. And I mean that before I knew I was neurodivergent, I had put on this mask of everybody like in society, everybody around me, what I thought they wanted me to be like, how I thought I needed to behave. I realized, who gives a freaking damn about what anybody thinks? There's a book called The Four Agreements. I think it's called The Four Agreements. I don't remember the name of the author right now on the top of my head. Maybe I can edit that in. The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. One of the agreements is don't take anything personal. And that really stuck with me right away. And I just started to drop judgment from myself and to drop judgment of others. And that was something in 2020 that I really, really, really worked on. In 2021, I really, really, really worked on that. And it started becoming a habitual practice of self-love and releasing the judgment and to love myself unconditionally. And I was saying these affirmations and, even if you're saying an affirmation out loud, like I love myself unconditionally is an affirmation that I've been using for quite some time now. When I first started using it, I did not love myself unconditionally. That was not a practice that I had. But as I continue to say it, the subconscious mind, it doesn't know whether or not you're joking. So if you're saying a joke out loud that's self-deprecating, your brain, your subconscious mind is taking it as a fact, and it will believe that self-deprecating thing, even if you're joking. So I started to try to erase any negative self-talk, any self-deprecating stuff. If I caught myself being like, ugh, that was so stupid, I would say, actually, you know what? That was just kind of silly and goofy of me. I am human. I'm smart. I'm intelligent. I'm lovely. I'm amazing. I'm great. I would say, 5 nice things about myself to cancel out the one negative self-deprecating thing that it was just a habit. It was just a part of my vocabulary that I had ingrained in myself. Whether or not I actually believed that I was stupid, I was still telling myself that. But now, my inner monologue, if I mess up, I'm like, it's okay. I've come to a point where I've healed enough of that inner child, of the person I was masking, who was told that they were stupid or loud or unworthy or a burden. I mean, healing is not linear. So there are still some days that I feel those things and those come up, and I still have anxiety, and, these thoughts will come into my brain, but my higher self comes through. I come through and I say, I'm smart. I'm talented. I am worthy. I am deserving. I am kind. It's okay to make mistakes. I'm human. It's not that deep. It's all going to be okay. All is well. This is the dialogue that has begun with myself, and it's taken me quite some time to get here. And I'm really, really, really proud of myself for it. But that all started with the spiritual journey, with the spiritual awakening, with learning Kabbalistic, practice and aligning myself with my spiritual and religious practice into one. And that's really what I wanted to fill the gap in of what I didn't talk about in the first episode. And I know in the first episode, I also talked about, getting diagnosed through like TikTok and a little bit about the energy of like Mercury retrograde and Mars retrograde and the moon and Insight Timer and how I got started. So these are all things that I have like listed for me to talk about in the third episode. And also a little bit of my sound healing. And I know I said maybe I would attach that to the first episode, or maybe I'll attach it to this episode. I think I've recorded around an hour or so. So I think, honestly, I'm going to say I think I would like to attach the sound healing to this episode, just so you get a little taste. And it's just going to be a few minutes of it. So So basically, let me give a little context to what a sound healing is. I go on Insight Timer live, and I sometimes will have intentions I want to set of where I want the healing to go, or I will ask whoever is at that live what they want. And I'll listen through. I recorded my most that's not true anymore. I was going to say, when I filmed episode 1, it was my most recent sound healing, but I did a sound healing last week that I didn't record. But the most recent one that I have recorded, I think there was an intention about, finding the here and the now, being in the present moment. So I'll listen back to my recording, and I will edit in the intentions, what intentions that was set, and then it will be the music. So the music itself is improvised. All of my sound healing work is improvised sound healing. I have some background in, like musicianship and like sight singing and just singing in general. I don't play many instruments. I know a little bit of piano and very little bit of a guitar, but like most of my sound healing is played on a steel tongue drum in the key of D major. And I don't have it with me right now, but you'll, if I put in the clip, actually maybe you won't see it, so scratch that. But the sound healing, it's really light. You can sit down, you can lay down, you can stand up, you can dance, you can move, whatever you feel called to do. The sound healing is really, you can just have it on just to listen to. If you have instruments and you want to play or you want to hum, sometimes I'll hum in my sound healings. And it's just intuitive, and I just, allow myself to play whatever I feel fits the intention. And I say it's spirit led. I kind of just let spirit guide my hands, is what I will say. But I'm not literally like feeling a spirit like moving my hands like a puppet. Like that's not what I just like do what I do, and it just sounds nice to me. And maybe you'll like it too. So if you don't like it, you can always turn off the podcast episode early. I mean, it's literally going to be just like a couple minutes. So if you want to take a listen, that's what this is going to be. But before I edit that clip in with me stating the intentions and then having the actual sound healing, I just want to say thank you again for listening to my podcast and for listening to me and listening to episode 2. I know this episode was also a little bit all over the place, kind of like episode 1, but I guess that's kind of the vibe. I mean, it's more organized in the sense that I have things that I'm going to talk about, but yeah, stay tuned for the next episode where I'll talk more about my connection with the moon and how I really got started on Insight Timer. And maybe I'll talk about, being neurodivergent and getting diagnosed because of TikTok. Not because of TikTok, but kind of because of TikTok. And yeah, so thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. And here is some sound healing. The intention of this round of sound healing, we will be focusing on letting go of uncertainty, as well as being here in the now, coming into the present moment, really trusting that we are experiencing exactly what we need to experience, exactly when we need to, for our highest good, for our most brilliant, most desired timeline, and to allow us to be grounded and really find our center and balance every single day in the next month or so. Really taking time every day, checking in with ourselves. Do I feel grounded right now? And if not, taking action to ground yourself. Make sure that you're breathing really easily, not holding your breath, letting go, being here in the now, and grounding and trusting.